Hi guys, so this is my review on Darkest Mercy by Melissa Ma, the final book in the Wicked Lovely series. This is book number 5. This book was sent to me in the mail on Friday by HarperCollins, an early copy to review, which was very exciting, and I did request it. This was the book I've been most anticipating for this year. No matter what other novels were released in 2011, this was the one I was wanting. So, yes, I will give this 5 stars. Yep. I mean, I couldn't really give it anything else. I adore this series with every fibre of my being, so... yes. Darkest Mercy is going to probably be permanently linked in my mind with Deathly Hallows, only because my reactions and anticipation and expectations of this book were exactly the same as they were for Deathly Hallows. For the conclusion to the Harry series, I cared as much about Darkest Mercy, I think, as I did about Harry. Or almost as much. Almost as much. So, yes, I will preface this by saying that I'm going to try and keep this absolutely spoiler-free if I can. I'm going to be as general as is possible. Hopefully still I'll be able to review it fairly comprehensively, but I don't want to spoil stuff for anybody. Needless to say, I will warn you that this book, as the title suggests, is not light fare, and Melissa Ma, just like Jo Rowling, isn't afraid to take prisoners. She's not afraid to kill. She's not afraid to really be mean to her characters and make them go through hell repeatedly, seemingly without end. It's incredibly bleak at times. I felt like, honestly, for 99.9% of this book, I was feeling like there was a weight pressing down on my chest. Like I physically felt like burdened with all of this grief and worry and stress and depression. Yeah, so it's not an uplifting read, but I mean, I was finding it very hard to put it down. I read it over the course of 2 days, but that was just in nighttime reading. Needless to say, I didn't get much sleep. So, yeah, I mean, I was hooked, and by this time, you know, I'd invested so much in these characters, and I had specific favourites that I was really attentive to, and I just wanted to know what was going to happen to everybody. And although this is Donya's book, as you can see, that's Don there, holding a flower. Isn't that a beautiful colour? And Don is one of my favourites. She has been since book 1. I do like her very, very much. So even though this is her book, it does alternate between pretty much everybody, actually. Yeah, everyone really gets their turn at kind of controlling the narrative during this one, which is good. Because even though it is very important that we finally really get into the head of Dawn on her own, so much is happening, and there's tons of different, obviously each court has their own little concerns, as well as the wider turmoil that's going on within Fae. So you needed to be able to spend time with each character to see what was going on, and then of course it all culminates in the end, and when everyone goes to battle, which is hardly surprising considering Banach's going around. God, I hate her. Anyway, yeah, so there are about 5 perspectives that we go through, 5 point of views that the narrative swerves in and out of. But essentially it is Dawn's book, and we do get to bookend with her journey especially, which is really nice. And I cried a lot in this book. As I said before, I was severely depressed while reading it, but I should warn you, there are some pretty significant character deaths of some really good people, so it's very upsetting. In terms of relationships, I will say that, the main relationship I've cared most about for most of this series has been the, whatever it is, between Iriel and Neil, the two, the former Dark King and the current Dark Court King. Whatever the hell their relationship is. And what I actually like about this book is, even though the two of them and their connection features heavily throughout it, it's still not defined. No one actually puts any kind of label on it. It's just incredibly clear that they have an abundance of feelings for one another. Obviously, the convoluted nature of their history together and all the bad stuff between them I don't know, I love it because it's so intangible, but it's incredibly sincere all the same. I think it's fascinating. So those two I really cared about seeing where their journey led. Needless to say, I think they were the two I was crying over the most in this book. So that's not really a spoiler, but I was crying the most over them. But there are satisfactory. I think everyone should be happy with the way that all the main relationships progress and where they end up, hopefully, because I think it was very nicely done, and it wasn't schmaltzy. It didn't do a Breaking Dawn where everything was happy and there were rainbows, and it was so, you know, it just felt so trite and empty and hollow and cliche and blah. Thankfully, Melissa Marr saw a way to get people to get her beloved characters to the places they needed to go, and I think it worked out really well. I'll say that much. But the journey to get to those conclusions is not a pretty one, and I'm not necessarily telling you that this book has a happy ending, so don't misread me here. Oh, it's so frustrating not being able to say. Yes, the one complaint I will say that I do have, I've been a huge fan of the character of Grams from right at the beginning of the series, and that is, of course, Ash's grandma, who first, you know, was the one to raise her and tell her all about fairies and instruct her in the rules and stuff. I just love her because she's such a kick-ass woman. She's this little mini feminist who loves to bitch and rant, but offers insanely great advice and is a really comforting figure for Ash. And we don't see Grams. I really wanted her to be in this somehow. I don't know, I actually wanted her to somehow get in the battle, or just do something, have a really big interaction with just one Fae. Would have been fantastic. I really missed Grams and I wanted her to be in here. She is mentioned, but she doesn't feature, which made me sad. But, yeah, I mean, I think that there were so many narrative threads that Melissa Marr had to try and weave together and conclude effectively, and I think it was done really well. Especially considering how complex her world of fairies are and the way that the courts work, and we also get all the solitary fairies in here as well. So much to do, and it's not that big a book. It could have, I mean, the other installments have been more pages than this one. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I was really impressed, but I will warn you, it is heartily depressing during a lot of this. Really upsetting. But it's only because I've come to care so much about all these characters in this universe, and I just find it fascinating, and it's so beautifully written. And yeah, I just love it very, very much. So, I can't think of anything else to say. So, 5 stars out of 5 stars. The Darkest Mercy, the final book in the Wicked Lovely series.